Welcome back, everybody. We are so glad to have you guys join us again on this beautiful series of home improvement. My name is Travis Burkhalter, and this is my lovely bride, Brianna Burkhalter, and we are excited to get started tonight.
Yes, you are tuning in to Happily Ever After Hours. So, as you can see, we're back at the table like we said we would be. You never know where we're going to end up, but today we are back at the table doing our late night chat, just hanging out, and I'm just excited to continue this series with you.
Yeah, it's been a good week for us. We did a lot better on our preparation. And again, I like to tell you guys, we like to keep it raw and kind of tell you how we do things. And we were more prepared this time, I think, than we have been. And that's good. And stuff like that, it just gets better. We get better over and over again. So it's something that we're working on, and we're just glad to be able to have you guys here with us tonight. And hopefully this goes to plan and everything goes well with our home improvement. And hopefully it helps you in your relationships.
Yeah, so speaking of that, babe, so this week, what's something that you feel like was a win for us in our relationship?
What was a win for us this week in our relationship?
I'm throwing this at you.
That's we didn't even talk about that. Like that's curveball for real.
I have mine while you sit.
Yeah, let me know yours.
Yeah, think about it.
You obviously was thinking about it already.
Yeah, I did it on purpose, guys. I wanted to see if he was just gonna
just come off the top of the dome.
I'm gonna say, like we say all the time, life be lifing and things throw curveballs all the time. But we have really gotten into a good groove of not letting the stressors of life stress out our relationship.
Yeah.
Because there's times where, you're stressed about something or I'm stressed about something or both equally stressed about something that pertains to the house or, finances, things outside of our intimate relationship.
And somewhat out of our control too.
Yes, and we're doing a lot better at just focusing on the things that we can control and not allowing it to cause any tension between us just because of the stress. So.
Yeah. I would actually have to agree to that because that's actually a really good one, I think. But I think also just our relationship of just uncontrollable laughter, right? So I ain't gonna tell y'all what we laughed about because it's very embarrassing to me. But we were sitting there cackling for 10 minutes, and our daughter was in our room watching Comfy Couch, I think, and she, well, guys, what's so funny?
Yeah, she had to come out and see because we were laughing that hard. It was a good,
but it's
needed laugh.
It's like, oh, the honeymoon phase, it's over. The laughing, the joy, and all that kind of stuff is, but no, man, it doesn't have to be. And if you set, I think what we're doing right now, the great foundation, right? If you set it on a good foundation, then when the times do come, you won't just get you know how to roll with the flow, and you won't get too frazzled.
Right. Which brings us to our topic today. So last week we talked about the kitchen. So now we're moving on to our foundation of the house. Every house has a foundation, whether you're in a house, a condo, an apartment, there's something on the ground, making sure that it stays together.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with relationships.
Absolutely.
And, with what we're talking about, you set not a relationship, you set a foundation at the beginning of your relationship of, those expectations and things that you guys have talked about. But sometimes those things change.
Yeah, and I think you got to thinking, why did they not do their foundation the first, right? Last week it was about getting the heart right, making sure that you're actually ready to get into a relationship.
Right.
Or that you're in the relationship that you're in, right, that you're ready to prepare yourself and the relationships that you just naturally have with your family and friends and stuff like that. Sometimes you got to check yourself and really get that in order. Mm-hmm. Then what you like to do is make sure that your foundation is level.
Yeah.
And
Then
our
you can build.
condolences go to the families that's in North Carolina with the hurricane. And this is no shot, right? I'm not trying to say that it's a shot or anything, but you look online at some houses in Galveston, right, or some on the East Coast, they built their houses on the beach.
Yeah.
And really, that made no sense to me. Again, I'm in the middle of the country, in Oklahoma, so we usually have some pretty good foundation. But they wanted to live on the beach. They wanted the beachfront, and so again, praying that those families are found and all that good stuff. But the people, when no hurricanes needed, it's good weather and all that good stuff. Why would you build your house in the sand?
Yeah, you gotta pay attention to the land that you're building on before you even put the foundation on. Like, is it going to be something that is going to sustain the different temperatures, the time, all of those type of things? And it's the same with relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to be able to build your house and your relationship on the rock. And the rock, obviously, in this family is Jesus Christ. We know that. And so that's kind of something we did right away. Like, obviously, you guys learned that when we got together, I made her read a book. But I only did that because
I don't think everybody knew that. We talked about it on the radio.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did that on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we first actually got together, yes, I forgot. See, I got them mixed up. We were on the Black Love Club, and I was like, yo, like she brought it up. I kind of honestly forgot.
I'll never forget it.
But at that time, I was really serious and I think intentional on really what I wanted, right? Just freshly off of divorce a year later. And I didn't want to start another relationship not on good foundation, right? So I learned from my previous mistakes. And that's what life is about. It's about learning from your previous mistakes. Obviously, if you learn the same thing we keep making the same mistakes over again and then over again and then over again. We call that
insanity.
And so that's what I didn't want. I didn't want to have an insanity type of lifestyle or anything like that. So I wanted to make sure that we got our relationship on the right foundation before we even started really dating.
Yeah. Yeah. We weren't even I mean, y'all, for me, we were exclusive after the first date, maybe even before that, because he called me babe in a text and I was like, we're together. We're engaged at this point. But I respected, and it put a level of, I don't know, a different type of importance to the relationship right off with him setting that foundation of, this is what I bring to the table and this is what I really want for our relationship. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. Like, it didn't scare me that he wanted me to read a book. It was definitely different, but a good different. So there was a lot of things that we talked about at the beginning of our relationship, and even before we got married in marriage or premarital counseling, to really set up how we wanted our foundation to look. And I feel like for the most part, a lot of it is still the same, but there are some things that we've adjusted just because of life. We get older, we change. And so that means some things may need to change in the way that, we may communicate or how we deal with conflict, whatever that looks like. We also have kids now. And so that plays a part into, updating that foundation. And so it's really important to really recognize, one, at the beginning and, throughout your relationship, what are you prioritizing?
Oh, yeah. And so is the relationship that you have on the good foundation to keep it from splitting?
Yeah.
Right? Because there are a bunch of different type of foundations you can use. And so before we get into those type of foundations, again, let's read what it says about building your house on the rock. Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on a rock. And the rain descended, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on the house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who does this, that doesn't do this, does not do them, will be like a fool who built his house on sand. And the rain came, the wind blew, there you have it, right? It didn't last.
It huffed and it puffed,
Yeah.
and it blew the house
And
down.
it blew the house down. You know, the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf, you know, it taught us a lot. You know, the pig that used the straw, he didn't really last. He just came and huffed and it was gone. You know, the guy with the sticks, the pig with the sticks, it was gone. But the brother pig that had the stones,
He was good.
he was good. He was in there. So it's like what my wife was saying. What are you prioritizing, right? Like, you have to make sure that the things that you have inside for yourself that you want to prioritize. Like myself, like I said, I wanted to make sure that we had a good start, right? And that is making sure the things that we have inside of me is going to go into, I guess, her, right? That we both are on the same page and we put those two things together.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about marriage, but it's also important to set a foundation kind of within yourself in a sense, because when you have a certain level of a foundation of who you are, far as like how you want people to respect you or how you see yourself, it shows up in all types of relationships and friendships and familial relationships, but even in like romantic relationships, you know, there was a level of a foundation of me knowing who I was when we got together. And so I feel like that reflected also in our relationship because you treated me a certain way, or you respected me in a certain way that reflected how I respected myself, if that makes sense.
Gosh, that absolutely. There are people in today's time, you know, and a lot of times I don't think guys know their worth, right? And that's big to me because I realized that I didn't know my own worth for a lot of years. For a lot of years, I didn't know that, but she knew it, right? And then obviously, like I said, I got divorced, and then I started to figure out what my worth was. It took me having to get divorced, and that's why I started talking. That's how I got hurt. You know, I was talking by myself in front of the camera.
It is true.
You know what I'm saying?
He was doing a podcast.
You know, and I was just like, hey, out of 7 billion people in the world, I know I'm not the only person that's going through these heartaches and pains. So, you know, let me speak out. And so that's kind of how I started doing it. And I realized that I wasn't, because I got a lot of good feedback from a lot of different people that I really didn't know that needed to hear it at the time, right? And so that helped me to say, man, you're on to something, right? And then life happens and I get off of it. But I thought, I really liked doing that. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it. It brought a lot of joy to me when I used to do it. And so when I realized my own worth, right, I started treating myself different. I started to look at myself differently. And I started to accept things differently, right? So if somebody was talking to me, whether it be family, friends, or a potential spouse or a potential partner, right? If it didn't align with how I saw myself, hey, you got it.
Yeah. I mean, you said it, everything that I was thinking, because, you know, I think we all go through that time where we're trying to figure out who we are as people. And it's important, like we're talking about with this foundation, even when it comes to yourself, to also go back and look at that foundation after years, because again, you change when you get in a relationship. Sometimes you know, it's important that you recognize that you're a team, but also realizing that you still have your own individual personality.
Absolutely.
I know for, you know, mothers, it's very difficult. I know I struggle with it still, is remembering, you know, I was Brianna before I was anything else. Doesn't take away how much I value being a wife, how much I value being a mother, but we get so caught up in, you know, how important those things are to us that you forget the other part of you.
Yeah.
And so it's important to re-acknowledge that foundation as well as of who Brianna is, because ultimately, not just for myself, but it helps in our relationship, and it helps with, you know, our children when we both continue to be whole people.
Absolutely. And I think that, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
you're good.
but I think that's the biggest part of why a lot of people in relationships, and regardless if it's platonic or if it's with um, a person of interest or with his family, is like, oh, they don't know me, you know. And I felt like that a lot of my relationships. I felt like that before you, and it's because I really got to really see how it affects men, because I got to talk to a college teammate that also was divorced, and we were kind of just like chopping it up, and he was just like, man, and he was also divorced. He was like, my first marriage, I wasn't able to really be who I am, and he was like, it felt weird. Like I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know if I did something, she was like, oh, I don't like that. I was like, bro, I get exactly what you mean. Like, and so you kind of get lost with who you are, and that's something I'm big about. Like I'm trying to get people to understand now is I can't love her and I can't love my children the right way if I don't love myself the right way first.
Yeah.
And I had to get that foundation back in alignment with who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very important aspect of life, is to really truly know who you are, and to know that, one, who you are in Christ. Like that's the biggest thing for anybody. Like find out what he says about you, right? Then find out what you say about you. Mm-hmm. And then you put those two things together, and you're going to go here, right? Because you're confident, you're walking different, you're talking different, you have your chest out, head high, right? And so you're able to be the person, man or woman that you are. And that's the ultimate goal, is to be truly authentic to yourself. And when you can do that, good things happen.
Absolutely. Which includes getting into a healthy relationship, and one that can stand the rain.
Can you stand? That's my jam.
It's a good song.
It's a good song. And even though it is a good song, it has so much truth in it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it says many people can stun the sunshine, right? I'm paraphrasing. But that's,
lyric police.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what they're talking about, right? Everybody can stand, like, I can be with you on a sunny day. Anybody can take those. You know what I mean? But it's when things are tough. Are you going to back down and say, you know what, I can't do this? Or, this isn't for me, right? And it's not like this. I'm not talking about a bad relationship. I'm talking about a relationship. The man treats you good. The woman treats you good, and everything is kosher. But there are some hard times.
Yeah.
Can you stand the rain? Can you weather that storm? Is your foundation strong enough to do that? And so we in our deep dive, we realized that there are many different foundations, right? And so the first foundation that we're going to get into is stone, right? The stone foundation, what we kind of paraphrase that to, is being the honeymoon phase, right? Because it adds that charm. Right, mm-hmm. It adds that sparkle, that pizzazz that you like. And it's like, ooh, that looks good. Which the honeymoon phase is a very important part. Everybody likes it, right? But here's the deal.
And it's important.
It's important, but it's not just about the sex. It's not just about that stuff. It's not about the lust, right? Because really, in the honeymoon phase, that's really what it is. It's the lust for the person.
Yeah, the romanticized.
And the romanticized part of it, right? Because, he took me out for flowers. He opened the door, which, again, all men, you should open the door, every door for your wife, for your girlfriend, right? It just sets a precedent. It's like, ooh, that's nice. Don't just do it, to say, hey, I do this. Do it all the time, right? There are times I check her. I'm like, hey, you're not a beep, right? You've seen that, what was that special? It was like, he's a beep girl.
I forgot. I know what I forgot what it was called.
But you know what I mean? Like, don't be the beep girl, right?
He's talking about like when somebody picks you up and they honk the horn instead of coming to the door. In case you did not get that.
Or if you're both walking to the door and he clicks it, unlocks it from the, and then you just get in. Now, let him open the door for you.
Yeah.
Know how you like to be treated. And men know how you would like to treat your girl. It's at this, so.
Yeah, and the biggest thing with the stone, like on a physical house, is yes, it, like he said, it looks good, but it cracks easy. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing if your relationship was based on a quote unquote stone foundation where it's just based on those
Superficial.
cute things, the superficial
Mhm,
things,
mhm.
the post-worthy things, all of those type of things. Because again, going back to the can you stand the rain, when something happens and you haven't really had those deep discussions of like, you know, who the person is, what they've been through, or, you know, how they handle certain things, how they communicate, um, it's gonna crumble.
Yeah, because pressure breaks pipes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And those tough outings in a relationship, back to back to back, and it's just the honeymoon phase. Like, oh, they were fun.
I'll say really quick, I'm not gonna go into a deep dive of the story, but really quickly, when we first got together, you know, it was very quick that we got into very deep discussions about stuff in life and things that we had both been through and just everything like that. And shortly after, maybe I'd say like 4 or 5 months after we went on our first date, like we both ended up losing our jobs, and it was tough. And it could have easily, our relationship could have easily fizzled away just because we had all this personal stuff going on with not having jobs and trying to find new jobs. But it actually kept us, not it kept us together, but because we had those discussions already of who we kind of were. Granted, we were still learning each other, but it, and our relationship with God, definitely, we stuck it out. Obviously, we're sitting here, but like even in that time, it was, we were so connected because it was like, we're gonna fight through this. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what else we gonna do, but we gonna be together.
But I think also it had a big deal to do with the respect that we both had for
Yeah.
one another.
Yeah, and that's
So-
what I'm saying. Like we had, I think every relationship has that stone in it, but it's important to make sure that that's not all that it is. Because we had fun. I mean, we still have fun, but talking about that particular time, we had fun. You know, we did romantic stuff, we did funny stuff, like all that, but we also incorporated our relationship with God. We talked about other stuff, you know, all of those things, which is why I feel like we, you know, stood in the rain.
Yeah,
Per se.
100%. 100%. And so with that, you know, we just knew that if we can get through this, then, you know, really it doesn't matter what comes against us. We know we together can defeat the problem.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so the next type of foundation is going to be wood. And so wood is like when you're kindling or rekindling a relationship. So, you know, good wood gives good insulation, you know, the warm fireplace, all that kind of stuff. But it's also a renewable resource. And so some people use wood for foundations because they're like, oh, it's, you know, helping nature and everything like that. But it doesn't always last unless you add stuff to it, which is our third one we're not going to get into yet. We're going to talk about the wood first.
But yeah,
So-
it's the kindling relationship. It's the spark, right? And you want to make sure that you're doing things that makes a person stay interested into you. Right?
Yeah.
Because when you're in a relationship for however many years, it can get stale, right? I mean, it's possible, but are you constantly re-sparking that flame? Are you constantly doing things that's, you know, just surprises them? And again, it can be small. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant or anything like that. But it's making sure that you're staying connected with your person, and
Yeah.
making sure that you are allowing one another to truly be themselves, one, but also to explore different avenues within the relationship. Because, you know, again, I'll be the first to say it. I'm not the most romantic type of guy,
He's working on it.
but I've been
y'all.
working on it constantly throughout our relationship. And it's something that I think that she appreciates because she knew, like, oh man, he's terrible at that. Like, she probably was thinking that. She never really told me I was terrible at it, but she allowed me to continue to work through it and continue to show up and show out and to really get to know her. And that really, I think what women want is a guy to know them that they're spending so much time with. Know the small things, right? And the cheat code is to simply put it in your phone, right? That's a cheat code for you. Whatever she tells you,
you can't put everything.
you can't put everything. You can't put everything, but there's some stuff. Shoe size.
It's the
right?
effort.
Clothes.
It's the effort part.
But it is the effort, 100%.
Because, like you said, yes, at the beginning you were not a romantic person at all.
Good.
But again, like y'all are gonna hear this probably in every episode. Communication, like at some point it's gonna come up. But instead of me just getting upset and being like, oh, he never does anything, like we had conversations about it.
Yeah.
And then I saw that he was trying. And so that's what made it okay for me, or for me to be like, all right, well, you know, he's getting better at it, instead of being like, I ain't gonna be with this guy because he's not romantic at all and I can't deal with it. Because I saw that there was effort and he was trying every time. And so he's better now, y'all. He's better. He does things on his own now.
But yeah, you know, and that's that spark. That's that wood that you need in any relationship. You need to have some wood because you always want to make sure that you're doing the right things to keep it aflame. And so when you're able to do that, again, it makes them feel appreciated. It makes them feel heard on both sides of the spectrum, right? There are things sometimes when she gives me stuff and I'm like, I didn't need that, i.e. this here, right? I've been using this thing, like I've had it for 10 years. And I don't remember what she got it for before.
Father's
Day. Yeah, that's right. I was like, I don't need that. But then she was, you know, I used it like a couple of weeks later. I was like, man, that was a good buy. Like, man, I really appreciate that. And I'm still using it, right? And I probably will use it until this thing somehow falls apart or breaks down. But, you know, just those small things, it puts a little gem in the treasure chest, right? And it's like, ooh. And that really is that spark of flame that you're like, oh man, this person really cares. Yeah. And so that's something that I've never had, right? I've never in my whole relationship of life. I don't know.
I get what you.
But you know what I mean.
But in my head, I was like, relationship of life.
You know what I mean. Sometimes flubs are going to happen, and that's okay. We don't know that. But in my relationship, I don't think that's something that I, again, ever thought about as a guy, because we as guys sometimes are put back on the back burner as far as getting gifts from our spouses or our girlfriends or whatever have you. And she's very adamant about really making sure that I'm also feeling the love. And I think you do that, the guy will go up and above the moon for you.
Yeah. And I will say it doesn't always have to be tangible gifts, you know? No. Just being there for someone. I mean, like, one thing that I like that he does that has nothing to do with the tangible gift is if I'm cooking and he just comes and hugs me from behind while I'm cooking and just is there with me in that moment. Currently, when he lifts my stomach too, that's even better because it's just like, whoop. But it just, I don't know, I just like it. And it's just something that it just makes me feel like, oh, he's here with me. And so it's just remembering too with wood that not only is it when you need that warmth, that good insulation, but like we said, it's the renewable resource too. And so knowing that sometimes you have to adjust what that looks like to rekindle your relationship, whether it's, okay, you know, we're super busy. It's not the most romantic to have to schedule a date night, but if that's what you have to do to make sure that you're taking care of your relationship, then do it.
Oh man, I had one of my coaching OGs. He told me, we do staycations, homie. I said,
I love a staycation.
He was like, you know, we live here, but we're just gonna go to the hotel and get a hotel and stay away from the house. It replenishes you. I was like, man, that's real smart, you know. And this man's been married. I don't think he's married at the moment anymore, but this is something he used to do when he's married. And it was like, hey, that's a really good idea. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, maybe because life is rough and, you know, you got kids, you can't just pick up and say, you know what, we're going to go to Cancun, whatever, whatever it is. But, you can get a hotel, you can go to another town, that's inside the state and be able to do something that you normally don't do just to break up the monotony.
Yeah, just some fun. And even if you can't get away from the house, you can do stuff in the house. Like, there's times, I mean, we'll be tired the next day, but there's times we'll stay up super late just binge watching a show together because that was something that we did when
The
we
whole
first
time,
got together.
and when the world shut down. The world shut down, you couldn't do that.
And so it was just kind of like, we binge watch shows and would get all into them, being here talking to the TV and stuff, and just be cuddled up on the couch. And so there's days where we're just like, we need, like, one of us is like, I need that. And like, all right.
Yeah.
And the other sucks it up because, y'all, I used to be a night owl, and I don't know what happened. Maybe when I turned 30, it switched. I don't know. But now I'm not. But there's times that I will stay up just because I want that one-on-one time with him without, the kids and everything like that. So.
Yeah. And the last, well, not even the last one, but I guess the second to last one. So there's a little bonus that we have. But the last one of the foundations that we want to talk about really is concrete, and it's the most versatile, right? You can make it look a lot of different ways and make it work for you. And not like all of them, you can, but this one is a long-lasting one, right? And
Right.
mixture makes it stronger. And so that's, you might have to mix all three of these things in to make it work for you.
And that's what I was thinking. So I know, like, when we first talked about these, it was like, okay, your relationship is either a stone, or you're in the wood phase, or you're in the concrete. But when you really sit and think about them, I feel like a good relationship has a mixture of all three of them. If you really think about it, because it's like, you have the stone, which is that, that exciting romantic part of it, making sure you guys still have fun together, laughter, all that. And then you got the wood that's making sure that, you're keeping rekindling the relationship, making sure that, you're on the same page and moving together, growing together. And then the concrete, which is that mixture of, we're going to stand the test of time. It's the strength in the relationship.
Yeah.
Really. So it's like, you can pinpoint which one that you may be more prone to at this time, but really, I feel like we need all three of them in a sense.
Yeah. The way to get a long-lasting relationship is to stay in it, right? And that's the only way that you can get it. And so you're not going to get it by always tucking your tail and running. So making sure that you are in the relationship for the right reasons, I think, is also the biggest part. I think a lot of people are afraid to be alone. And I think you need to be alone for yourself for a while, right? Because when you can stand to be alone, right, and you know that, man, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm bad at, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm bad at.
And this is what I want.
And this is what I want, right? And you know those things. When you get ready for that relationship, you let the person know. And if they say, hey, you know what? I don't think that's something that I would like, that's fine. Because again, you're okay with yourself. You know how to love yourself. You know how to take yourself out on dates. I told one of my partners, man, go to the movies by yourself, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, learn how to date yourself.
That took me a long time to do because I always felt like when I saw people sitting by themselves, like, oh, they're so lonely. And then, I got, this was before you, like, I got tired of, being, not necessarily being played. Like, I didn't really get played too much, but there would be guys that would literally be like, you respect yourself and you're like wife material, so I don't want to play games with you. And it was like, okay, I respect you telling me that, but like, dang. Yeah. And then I finally like did something by myself and I was like, this is really peaceful.
And another thing about that is if you don't like yourself, how do you expect somebody else to? So you got to like yourself. And if you don't like yourself, then fix yourself. Yeah. Because once you fix yourself and you keep working on the thing that you know that you're bad at, you're going to attract the person that you probably were going to end up with. Yeah. So make sure that you're constantly, like I am a avid learner. I like to learn new things. You guys are going to hear that a bunch. I learned a bunch of different random things.
Fun fact.
Yeah. just because I got to know sometimes how things work. And the most important thing that I got to know how it works is myself. And when I realized, hey man, I like sitting back and playing games, right? I like to, get back in my adventure game. That's all I did when I was 15 and 16 because I was alone by myself quite a bit, right? Um, Long story, but we're not going to get into that. But I was by myself, and that's when I enjoyed myself the most, right? So I got 30. I bought myself a PlayStation 4 at the time, and I was like, I'm about to start playing games after work, right? And when I play, and I go to work and come back home and play a game or two, go to sleep, I felt rejuvenated, right? That was something that put back the joy of my childhood and my youth back into. Yours may be, hunting. Maybe you haven't hunted in a while, right? Go hunt. Go hunting. It might be fishing, right? Go out into the lake, go fishing. Go buy your fishing license because apparently you got to have a license to go fish, which is beyond me. I'm gonna go down that road. But if you got a back, pond where you ain't got to go get a license, go fish. Go do things that you did when you were younger, and bring that joy back to yourself and fix the foundation that you need because you're doing all three. You're rekindling yourself for someone else to come in and enjoy yourself with them. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. That's how I started writing again because I used to love writing. Like I had little books that I make all the time.
yeah.
So, that it does help when you look back at those things.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's hard to cut your wisdom again. But I was sharing because one of my students, she came to me and she was like, "Coach, I think out of all the teachers, you would really appreciate this." And I was like, "What you talking about?" She was like, "Well, so I do a little drawing and I do some poems." And I was like, "Oh, bet I do poems too." And she was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, I do poems." And so I let her read this poem that I wrote several years back, and we were just sitting there exchanging our poems with one another. And I was like, "Man,
That's cool.
I really miss these poems. I'm gonna get back into my poetry. I don't know what I'm gonna write, but I'm gonna get back into them." And so I enjoyed them, and I used to write a lot for her, and she's my muse. So I got a beautiful muse to get those lovey-dovey poems back up. But she was like, these are really good. They kind of feel like a rap flow. I was like, yeah, a little bit. I'm not a rapper, but but I just enjoyed that. And reading those again the other day just made me like almost again. I rekindled it. I was like, yo, I'm about to get back into writing my poetry because I really enjoyed it.
And that's how it should be in a relationship too. Sometimes you get in those lulls where it's like you're just doing life, but it's really important to have those moments too of
Absolutely.
having that time. Like I think we had one the other day. You already mentioned when we were like cracking up for 10 minutes. Like that was, gosh, it was just so needed. It was just a good laugh. But you need those moments because it just breaks up the monotony. Did I say that word right?
You did.
Awesome. Of life. But sometimes you may need help. Yes. Keeping your foundation up and keeping it from swaying because like we said with physical houses, weather happens over time, foundation may start to break down a little bit just because it's houses and that's what happens. And so sometimes you need reinforced steel.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing in relationships.
Yeah. And so the reinforced steel here is obviously outside help. Right? If you want to make sure that everything is everything, right? And so you need that extra support. Like my wife said, the house may shift, and sometimes you may need to go to marriage counseling because you can't get out of each other's way, right? You know that this issue that we're having, it's not that big of a deal, or it may be that big of a deal, right? And you still love each other, but you're still butting heads, and you might need outside help to help you get over that, and not really get over it, but work through it, right? Because hey, I still love them, they still love me, I may be frustrated with them, but we need that extra help just so we can get over this hump. And this book that I read, that she read, in it talked about the crazy cycle. And so what the crazy cycle is that you have an argument, right? And then you get off the argument because you've worked through it either by not talking about it, right? Or talking about it somewhat and then
Not really
resolving it. And then you get off and then you hear and then you have a good time and then you get back onto the crazy cycle. And then you're back to, oh, I can't stand them, I hate them, and this, that, and the third. And then you get off of it, and you're back here. And you're good for a little bit, and then you get back on the crazy cycle. And it's just a unsolved issue over and over and over and over again. And eventually, it wears and tears on you.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be things that you're not going to always agree on. There's things that we work through or working through that is just from life changing. It's not necessarily it doesn't mean that you have an issue in your relationship far as like, oh, this is bad, our relationship is going bad. It may just mean that, there's a new situation in life or time, people growing, things changing, and you have to reevaluate, is the way that we're working through conflict or the way that we're working through our problems still beneficial in this time, or do we need to reevaluate it so we can get off that crazy cycle? Communication, obviously, but also really sitting down and talking about whether that's in that moment or if you need time to think about it, whatever works for your relationship. But it's important to make sure that you don't take it lightly, because just like in a foundation, if you go look and say, oh, it's a crack, oh, it's just a little crack, I'll deal with that later. And then over time, you forget about it because now you've moved on to something else, but you never really dealt with it. And then more weather happens and more time happens. Now it's a bigger crack. Now you got to spend more money to get it fixed. And it's the same thing with a relationship. If you don't fix those cracks early on that you see,
it's going to cost you more.
It's going to cost you more in the back end.
100%.
So it's important to really pay attention to those little things, even if you feel like it's not that big of a deal in the moment, or it's like, oh, maybe I'm just, sensitive or dealing with something else right now. Still bring it up in a way of a conversation. Like, I don't think it's very productive to point the finger. I don't think anybody responds well to, you did this and you did this. But if you say, hey, this is how I feel about a situation, I think you can really talk through those little things before they become big things.
No, 100%. I think you hit it spot on the head. Is that make it, again, it's making me feel this type of way, right? Instead of you make me feel, because again, that's a personal attack and it could bring up defenses.
Right.
So knowing how to talk to one another, and that's something we'll get into another time. But I think knowing how to really resolve those issues is very important so that the house stays level. And if the house is level, then everything else will work out eventually. Mm-hmm. But you just want to make sure that you're doing a good enough job to facilitate that conversation. Because again, I might be upset about the situation right now, but in 10 to 20 minutes, I might be a little bit more responsive to have that. I might be a little bit more open to have that conversation, because I love you, you love me. We're all one big happy family, right? Shout out to Barney.
I was trying not to laugh. I was like, okay, Barney.
It just came to me. But no, for real though, you got to be able to have those conversations, because it's something that is definitely needed to have a sustainable relationship, and it's something that you want to have to be able to continue the relationship that you're having with the person that you're with. And if you're able to do those things, and if you're able to apply these into your relationship, I am pretty positive that if you can do it, things will work out in the better end. And both people got to be willing to make it work.
That effort You got to put in effort, regardless of what phase you're in, what type of relationship you're in. If you really want it to be what it can be, you got to put in the effort. And we believe that any relationship can be saved if both people are putting in the effort.
Yeah. So that's our time. We really greatly appreciate you guys joining us on Happily Ever After Hours. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and subscribe. We want that. We need that just so that we can make sure that we're helping everybody in their relationships. We appreciate you. Until next time, keep letting God create your love story and stay curious. Talk to you soon.